Police are looking for the person who pulled the trigger.
You know, in the streets, power respects power.
Chapter 1. The Family. Miss T was born and raised in Harlem, New York. She grew up on 134th Street and 8th Avenue with her two sisters.
I lived on 133rd and 7th Avenue, then we just moved right down the block to 134th and 8th Avenue.
She was raised by her American-born mother and Jamaican father. Despite growing up in a strict household, T became intrigued by the street life. T's uncles, Wild Al and Big Stan, were heavy in the drug game.
They were brothers, same mother, same father, two totally different personalities.
They had drug spots in Harlem. In 1986, T started selling drugs on 123rd Street for Al and Stan. Al mainly hustled on Edgecombe Avenue with his business partner, Jacob. Chapter 2. Wild Al. In 1986, Al was shot and killed. It is said Jacob allegedly hired someone to kill him. After Al died, T started bottling up crack for Stan. She later moved from bottling to collecting money off the blocks.
Al did what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it, and sometimes he did things without even thinking. It was scary sometimes because you just didn't know what he was going to do or how. You know, he just did things on his own terms, and he was just crazy. You know, he was definitely a wild guy. You'll turn around and in the room, you got grenades in the bedroom. Where he get these things from, I had no idea. I think he was probably one of the only American dudes that the Jamaicans allowed on Edgecombe, because if anybody from Harlem remembers Edgecombe Avenue, the Jamaicans had that on lock. Nobody can go up there and hustle. But Al and his crew was able to do that, and you know, I guess he was probably just as wild as they were, and they were dangerous. Those guys up there were dangerous. A lot of people lost their lives up there. Jacob and my uncle hustled together up on Edgecombe Avenue. At one time, they were really good friends. You know, they got money together, but at some point, something went wrong. Jacob had my uncle killed by another guy that worked with them. And we knew it. You know, we were told little things here and there. And after it happened, the guy that Jacob allegedly got to kill my uncle, we never saw him again. So after Al died, I stuck under Stan. He would have me chopping up crack, bottling it up. And then after a while, he had some other girls doing it that lived in the project, some on the east side, some on the west side. So then basically most of the time I would just be riding around with him. And when it was time to take the work out on the block, I did that. When it was time to take money, I did that. You know, it was just something that was fun to me. So that's basically what I did.
Chapter 3. Gold. After Norm, T started dating another drug dealer named Dog.
In 1987, I met Dog.
Dog hustled out on Manhattan Avenue with his partner, Kev Frost.
Kev Frost was 15, Dog was a couple of years older. These dudes are getting money.
T eventually broke up with Dog after he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. In the summer of 1987, T met Unique. They soon started dating. Unique was allegedly a major drug dealer. He is credited with creating the popular party chant, "Ayo, He was also the owner of Mecca Hall Audio. Ultimately, T and Unique went their separate ways, but remained good friends.
Unique was a unique individual. He was living with someone in my building, and I think we met on an elevator. Yeah, we started dealing with one another, and we had our relationship, but I probably was more into it than he was in a sense, but we were very close. We spent a lot of time together. He was the first guy that I ever seen with a money machine. That's the first time I seen a money machine. He had like bags of jewelry, and he always said Black. He named me Black. He said, and you spend money on jewelry, make sure it's good jewelry, because you never know when you have those rainy days. That always stuck with me, because trust me, I've been to the pawn shop before, and I've seen some dude from the streets that I know had money in the same pawn shop with me one time. So those days come. Those rainy days definitely come. He loved to party. Just being with him outside was like a party. He wanted to have fun. He loved to smoke his weed. He had nice cars, dressed nice. Whenever you was around him, he was going to take care of you, look out for you, and you was guaranteed a good time. Talking about Unique, you got to mention Club 2Gs. I mean, Club 2000, I have memories of those days like none other. He knew how to throw a party, and he knew how to bring the right people through to make the party jump. He had all kind of rappers come through, Luke dancers, Uncle Luke, LL in there, Redman. So many people came through to see what was going on. And yes, Unique was the one who came up with that phrase, "Ayo, I." That was definitely him. Being around him, he made you happy. He made you smile. He made you laugh. And those Club 2000 days was definitely hitting, and definitely miss those days.
Chapter 4: The Lynch Mob. Lou Sims was from Uptown. He was allegedly a chief enforcer for the lynch mob.
Lou was doing his thing in the street.
The lynch mob was a notorious Harlem drug crew. They hustled all over Harlem, but their main location was 142nd Street in Lenox. The crew was allegedly headed by Leon.
Leon and I were really good friends. He was my daughter's godfather as well.
Lou and Leon met in school. After being released from a stint in prison, Lou reconnected with Leon. The lynch mob ran a multi-million-dollar crack cocaine business. They supplied drugs to numerous parts of the country, including Alabama. In 1989, T and Lou started dating. T first met Lou when she was 5 or 6 years old. T's cousin and Lou were childhood friends.
Lou was around me when I was young. He and my cousin, Ronnie Ball, they used to be together back in the days. In 1989, I ran back into Lou. He has a beautiful smile. You know, he's a nice looking guy. He loves to play, tell jokes. He wasn't always somebody who was mean and running around doing crazy stuff, you know, like people think that he was doing. No, he was a human being. He wasn't a monster. Lou is definitely a good person. He really is. Lou had a good relationship with my sister, my aunt, you know, as well as my cousins. So, you know, he was definitely a part of my family at some point. So, you know, those are good memories that I have of what he and I had. Leon, he was a sweetheart. I really genuinely can say that I had a lot of love for that guy. And love, trust, all of that. He was definitely a good person who was there and would help someone. He was definitely like a brother, a good friend to me. And that's what I like to remember about Leon. I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even hear the name lynch mob until they all got arrested. I don't know where that name came from. Maybe they did use it, but I honestly never heard it until the newspapers had that in there. If they were using that name, I didn't hear it. And then it could have been because I kind of separated myself at some point from what was going on uptown, of course, because Lou and I weren't dealing with each other anymore and I was somewhere else doing my own thing.
Chapter 5, Vengeance. In 1990, Jacob was shot dead while talking on a payphone. It was alleged Jacob was killed in revenge for the death of Wild Al and a beef with T Money over Jacob's wife. Al's best friend Rashid was allegedly behind Jacob's murder. After Jacob died, his younger brother vowed to avenge his death. One evening, T, Lou, Stan, and a few others were standing on 134th Street.
Everybody was out there just talking and, you know, doing our thing or whatever.
All of a sudden, they were ambushed by 3 or 4 hooded gunmen. T, Lou, and Stan escaped the shooting unscathed, while 2 others were injured. Jacob's brother was going after people who he thought was responsible for his brother's death. T Money was a hustler from 127th Street. One night, T Money was sitting in his vehicle with a passenger. Jacob's brother allegedly walked up to the vehicle and opened fire. T Money and his passenger died at the scene. Jacob's brother eventually tracked down Rashid and shot him multiple times.
And he caught him off guard.
Rashid died in front of Harlem's Mart 125.
Mart 25, which was a popular shopping mall.
However, Jacob's brother's murder spree came to an abrupt end. He ended up getting killed by an unknown assailant. His murder still remains unsolved.
$1990, on this particular day, me, Lou, Stan, and about 2 other dudes were in the middle of 133rd and 134th. Now, my back was turned to the building, so I'm facing the street. Lou was facing the building, his back was to the street, and he can see towards 134th Street. But there was a look that came over his face that told me it was something that wasn't good. But it happened in slow motion, yet it happened so fast. He looked, I looked at him, then before I could turn to look, he pushed me and took off. All I can hear was one dude go, "There that motherfucker go." And the shots were being fired, but they weren't after Lou. They were after Stan. The good thing is that they were working on my mother's building, so there was a scaffold there, and we all were kind of standing under that. That is probably what saved Stan. Although one of the guys that was out there with us got shot in his behind. But Stan was able to go towards 133rd, run up to St. Nick's Avenue, and then he disappeared. The crazy thing is this happened on the evening of Jacob's wake. So his brother wasn't even trying to wait until his brother was buried. He was so in a trance, from my understanding, from people who knew him. You know, losing Jacob was like losing his world. It literally ended this kid's world. After the attempt on Stan, Jacob's little brother went on an all-out rampage, again, going after people who he thought was responsible for his brother's death. And he ended up sneaking up on T-Money and a guy named Rodney, who had absolutely nothing to do with this beef whatsoever. T-Money and Lou were real tight. They were very good friends. And then after that, I believe is when Jacob's little brother ran up on Rashid. And it's alleged that Rashid is the one that killed Jacob, maybe because it was alleged that Jacob killed Al. Jacob's little brother caught Rashid on 125th Street. Rashid is a person that was definitely about his business too. But again, we have a young kid whose world was ended when his brother got killed. His stakeout game must have been crazy, because he was just catching everybody, or attempting to do so. But the little brother ended up getting killed. Who killed him? I have no idea. Why they killed him? I have no idea. I'm not sure if it was because of what he had done to others. I really don't know. It could have been anybody, because he had done so much in such a short period of time. But to be honest with you, I don't think that he ever thought of himself as far as caring whether he lived or died. He set out to do some things, and he accomplished what he set out to do for the most part. I will say this, and I said it in my book: if you're going to do it and avenge the death of your loved one, that's how you do it. You know, I have to give credit where credit is due. You know, I'm from the street, and if someone hurts someone you love to the point where you feel like that's all that you can do to feel better, this young man felt pain that he had probably never felt before. So I understand why he felt the way he felt and why he did what he did. Now, I will say this: I don't know if Stan had anything to do with that. I don't even know why Jacob's little brother even came after Stan. So I'm going to put that out there as well. I'm just talking about the way of going about taking care of business when somebody hurts somebody that you love. He was just a shell of a person once Jacob got killed. He was like literally not there anymore. And you know, I feel bad for the young kid, because that wasn't his life. And from my understanding, that's not the life that Jacob wanted from him. He was a kid that played ball and wasn't into the streets like that. And it's unfortunate that he was put in that situation to have to go out like that.
Chapter 6: The Phone Call. Rich Porter was a major player in the Harlem drug trade. In 1989, Rich Porter's little brother Donnell was kidnapped and held for ransom.
Rich was, you know, he was kind of a big deal to Harlem. You know, Harlem was known for getting money. We were known for wanting to dress nice, having cars, The dudes, had the fly chicks, and the chicks always wanted the flyest dudes that was getting money. And in the late 80s, you had AZ, you had Rich Porter that was from 7th Avenue, 132nd Street. They was getting money. AZ was more on the low key side. Rich Porter was that dude that had the cars, the clothes, the big jewelry, and all he did was wanted to floss. We didn't even use that term back then, but he had swag and he was flossing. He was that dude that once he came driving up the block, everybody knew who he was. He was somebody that all the girls liked to see coming. He was also the dude that other dudes wanted to be like. Those days were good. Those days were good. Then there came a time where his little brother got kidnapped and he needed to find his brother. Things were going on.
The kidnappers demanded a ransom of $500,000 for Donnell's safe release. Rich turned to his cocaine connect Fritz and asked for the funds.
You see, Rich Porter was having a problem accumulating the money to pay for the ransom for his brother. So what he did is he went to speak to Fritz about some help in regards to some money to help pay to get his brother back. So what Fritz did, he gave him a large sum of money plus 30 keys of coke to sell, that he could, raise the money to help pay to get his brother back, and as well as, step off the game, because he could no longer hustle no more because the feds is already involved. They already know about him, what his lifestyle was about and everything. And the reason why his brother got kidnapped is because they know he was a drug dealer. So they needed that money from him. But unfortunately, he didn't have enough money to pay to get his brother back. His main mans, AZ and Alpo, I guess, they wasn't willing to help all. They didn't have that kind of money to help him to get his brother back, because the three of them was real tight. So he had to go outside of them to raise some money, and that's why he went and speak to Fritz.
In 1990, Rich Porter was found shot to death on City Island in the Bronx. Two weeks later, Donnell Porter's body was discovered.
In the midst of all that, Rich Porter gets killed. The kidnapping of his brother threw Harlem for a loop. It was a sad time. It was all over the news. It was in the newspaper. Harlem was just in an uproar because he was a baby. Then Rich Porter body gets found. That really threw Harlem for a loop because he was loved by a lot of people. Loved, liked, envied, whatever you want to call it, but he definitely had Harlem's attention. So one day I'm in the house, I get a phone call. So the caller says, "Yeah, bitch, we know Lou killed Rich. They gonna find your body in the river." So I'm like, what? The caller hangs up. Lou comes in. I tell him what happened. So I was like, yo, you need to go to 132nd Street up to 7th Avenue and see what's going on. Because if somebody calling the house, number one, they saying he did something that he didn't do. And two, they threatening to kill me and throw me in the river. And I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on? Me? So he went to 32nd Street. But before he leaves, I tell him, yo, put the bulletproof vest on, get that thing, and see what's going on. I'm making sure that he go up there right. So he goes up there, but he comes back fast. He told me everything was fine. It wasn't really no need for me to question him, because if he tell me everything good, everything good. So I wasn't really worried about anything. And that was the situation that, your name ring bells and people just want to blame you for certain things and you don't have anything to do with it. It just seems like at the time when bodies was dropping here and there, that's all you heard was Lou Sims' name, blaming him for the things that were going on. But I knew Lou didn't do that.
Chapter 7, 112th Street. In the summer of 1990, T met Fritz. Fritz was a big-time drug kingpin from 112th and St. Nicholas Ave.
A good friend of mine was like a niece to him, so I met Fritz.
He was known for providing coke on consignment to drug dealers in Harlem. T was then introduced to Fritz's best friend and business partner, Ace. Ace was from the east side of Harlem. Ace took a liking to T and started showering her with money and gifts. T ultimately broke up with Lou. Following the split, T started dating Ace. Eventually, they moved in together. In the fall of 1990, T found out she was pregnant. Upon hearing the news, Ace proposed to her.
I met Fritz. You know, he just looked like a regular guy, to be honest with you. He didn't look like your typical drug dealer who would be flashy, you know, with the clothes, the jewelry. Nah, that wasn't him. He would sell coke on consignment to whoever wanted to get some money. So he'll give it to you on an arm and you pay later. And he had it to do it. He was definitely the man that I said created bosses in the streets. If he didn't deal with you directly, most likely whatever work you got came from him, no matter who you got it from. He was definitely that dude making it happen. Not arrogant, nothing like that. One day, when I was down on 112th Street, Fritz said, T, somebody like you. So I said, who? And he said, Ace. And he seemed to be a real nice guy. Him too, looked ordinary. You know, he drove a nice motorcycle. He didn't dress flashy. I found out later, you know, he was from the Caribbean and he just dressed in like Dockers and stuff like that. Nothing that says or screamed, I'm a drug dealer, I'm getting money. Now, originally, Ace was from 129th Street and Madison Avenue. He had a little situation and he ended up on 112th Street with Fritz. You know, Fritz became like a big brother to him, a mentor and best friend. So, you know, Ace and I got real cool. We would talk on the phone a lot. He would come by my mom's building and see me. He would give me money. He would give me a lot of money. I would go shopping and I would also take Luke shopping because he was my boyfriend. I had to kind of hide the fact that I'm spending money that somebody else gave me. I made it look like, you know, it was money that I was getting from my mom. Because, you know, my mom always gave us money. Or I had a little something from Stan. So I already had always had something. But after a while, you know, I guess Lou probably started to suspect, okay, she getting clothes, she buying little jewelry. You know, Lou and I started to fizzle out. And, you know, I say he was acting up. And then Ace, you know, he was seeming more and more attractive. And he was a good guy. I mean, I never had roses. I had a guy send me roses. He would send dozens of roses to my mom's house. I would come from school and there would be a dozen roses on the table. And I don't know if he did it like every week, but it seemed like I got a lot of roses. And I thought that was just like so nice. And I'm like, okay, you know, some grown man stuff. And that made me happy. So, you know, me and Lou, we got into our little thing. We ended up breaking up. Before we broke up, I did tell Lou where I was getting the money from because he's not stupid. But I did, you know, express the fact that this is a nice guy. He's giving me money. I never did anything with him, never had a sexual relationship with the guy. He's just a nice guy. And I said I would stop taking the money. I'm not sure if I did or not. Nevertheless, after me and Lou broke up, you know, Ace was right there. It's like, okay, why not? Now, if it was any other dude, I probably would have been very cautious and hit it because, you know, Lou being, you know, who he was, it's like, okay, your girl leaves you or y'all break up. Sometimes they don't want to see you with nobody else. Not that anybody was scared of anybody, but, you know, in the streets, power respects power. And it goes without saying. Words don't have to be spoken. Okay, this is who I'm with now. You doing you, I'm doing me. Being with Ace was next level. I was 20. Going on 21. And to be 20 years old, I end up with a man who has money. He moves me into his apartment uptown. He gave me an Acura Legend to drive. We had a 325 BMW, which was stick shift, so that's probably why I didn't drive that. A customized van, and he had his bike. You know, having that at 20 years old was a big deal. We also had, well, he showed me, okay, listen, this is emergency money in the drawer, about $30,000. If anything happens, you know, you go in here, you use it. We also had 2 dogs, Bad Boy and Hitman. My dogs had their own apartment in a brownstone. So it was kind of like, okay, wow, this is nice. It was really, really nice. And, you know, just being with somebody who seemed like a big deal. At the end of the day, back then, most of us girls that were in the street, that our desire was to be with a guy who was getting it. So, you know, that's just how it was. But living the life with a drug dealer, especially a drug dealer who's doing a lot, you know, it comes with some sacrifices. There were times where I wouldn't see him 12 hours out the day, maybe 19 hours out the day. And although, okay, I have money to spend, I could ride around with my girls, I could basically do what I want to do, it's like, okay, but where's my man?
Chapter 8: The Safe. In 1991, Ace was arrested in connection with a 1987 murder. He was indicted and denied bail. Although Ace was completely innocent of the charge, while Ace was away, T took control of the business. Her duties included moving kilos of cocaine and collecting money owed to Ace. On Fritz's recommendation, T brought a safe to store the drug money. One day, 3 masked intruders armed with guns forced their way into her apartment. T was held at gunpoint and forced to open the safe. The intruders stole $150,000 cash and jewelry before fleeing.
I got a phone call from Ace stating that he was locked up for a murder that happened 3 years prior. In the meantime, business still had to go on. So I'm pregnant, I have the coke, I had some weed, and I had all the business contacts. So what I did is made a ledger of whoever I needed to see to collect money. I made a ledger of who was supposed to get any work from me. But what I did was I moved the business to my mother's apartment because I didn't want anybody to know where I lived at. And plus, when I was pregnant, I was kind of sick. So I needed to be around my family. And again, I'm 21 now. So I'm doing what I need to do. Fritz gave us $40,000 to hire Mel Sachs. At the time, Mel Sachs was one of the top attorneys. A lot of entertainers used Mel Sachs. So I'm like, okay, there's no way we can lose. We got 2 top lawyers. Ace didn't do it. They talking about something from 3 years ago. I believe it was May of 1991. I got a knock on my door. I thought it was my little sister. I told her to come upstairs at a certain time. So when I got to the door, a female voice said, "Tanya." So I opened up the door. 2 masked men and a female rushes in the house, and I fall right there by the apartment door. They had 3 guns to my head. I started swiping at the guns like to move them from my head in case something goes off. They was like, "Take us to the safe." Right before they came, Ace's brother was at my house getting some money for their father. In my book, I said it was his cousin, but it was actually his brother. He had just left my house, and 5 minutes later is when I got the knock on the door. They came in and they said, "Take us to the safe." Right then and there, I knew I was set up. Not too many people knew I had a safe. Fritz knew because Fritz is the one that told me to buy the safe in order to put Ace's share of money in there that he was going to be giving me every month, or how often he needed to give me the money for the business. There were only maybe 4 people who knew I had a safe. Like I said, it was Fritz, 2 of Ace workers, his brother, of course, who just left. So I took him back to the back room into the safe. They got the guns to my head. They pushed me to the floor in front of the safe. It's so crazy that at the time I wasn't nervous. It was just kind of surreal. I just couldn't believe that this was happening. I'm like, are these motherfuckers in my house with guns to my head like I'm being robbed? So I'm opening up the safe, but I'm acting as if I forgot the combination. I knew it. I was just playing and I'm thinking at the same time, just thinking. So one guy goes, I'ma kill this bitch. So then I go, well, then I'm not opening up nothing. The girl says, Tanya, don't worry, you're gonna be okay. So I say, then this nigga need to stop talking crazy. And I was talking exactly like that because, again, I just could not believe that this was going on. As I'm opening up the safe, she takes off my diamond engagement ring that Ace bought me. It was a beautiful ring. I open it, but before I open it, I say, listen, I'm gonna open it, take what y'all want, just don't kill me and my baby. And I said it just like that. I think I even told them that they can tie me up, just don't hurt me. I wanted them to feel comfortable to go ahead in there, get what they want, and get on out. So I open up the safe, they take the money out, about $100,000. They take weed, they take all my jewelry off the dresser, and they take a ledger. The ledger. I was more concerned about the ledger than anything else because the ledger had names and numbers, no addresses. But even if it didn't have numbers, the names, having names and having money by the names let them know who else has money. So that could have potentially got someone else robbed. It could have got someone else set up. Also, if that book landed anywhere with the authorities, I could have been in deep trouble because that's conspiracy to distribute. So I could have got a charge for that. That is what was on my mind. God held me down. I had one that was kind of feeling real itchy, saying he was going to kill me. After I had opened up the safe and got on a bed, that same one told me to put a pillow on my head. I was not doing that. I told him straight up, I'm not putting no pillow on my head. I was like, oh, this nigga watched too much TV. And some people do things just to get the feeling of how it feels to shoot somebody or do something. I wasn't going to even give him that opportunity. I went back upstairs and called my daughter's grandmother, and I told her straight up, your son just got me robbed. I told Ace. He didn't really want to believe it, but he believed it after a while. So then I spoke to Fritz. Fritz's health was deteriorating at the time, but he said something. I don't know where he got this from. He said, the people that did it is from in that building. So I'm sitting in the back of a BMW with him. It's a dude driving him around. I think his name was Keith. In my head, I'm like, Fritz is losing his mind. I don't want to hear this shit. I don't know what he's talking about. But he said that. Now, that's a key point right there. He said they are from in that building. I said, okay. But I knew Ace's brother just left my house. So then I call Leon. I go uptown. We have a discussion about it. Leon is like, okay, T, don't worry about it. This is what we're going to do. We're going to find out who did it. And, it was like music to my ears because I wanted them dead. He said, the girl, we're going to chop her fingers off. We're going to chop her hands off since that bitch want to steal your ring. That was like music to my ears. You find the dudes who did it, they're dead. That was music to my ears. That at the time is what I wanted to hear. That's what I needed to hear, that something was going to be done. Unfortunately, my intentions was if I found Ace's brother, he would have been dead. And that's just how I felt because me and my baby could have been dead. People don't understand. You send people in there to do one thing and then things go wrong. Anything could have happened. I never saw Ace's brother again. Ace never spoke to his brother again. So after a while, Ace believed that what I told him had to be true because all of a sudden he doesn't see his brother anymore for all these years.
Chapter 9. the end of an era. Hen Dog was a hustler from the Bronx.
Henry, aka Hen Dog, one of the flyest motherfuckers I ever knew.
He also hustled on 112th Street.
Henry was down with Ace and them. He was just a good dude.
Big Deb was a hustler from Madison Avenue. Fritz was supposedly supplying both Hen Dog and Big Deb with cocaine. On August 16, 1991, Fritz passed away following an illness. Two days later, T gave birth to a baby girl. After Fritz died, another individual took control of his operation. This individual refused to do business with Hen, Deb, and T. The trio decided to join forces and do their own thing. Unfortunately, in 1992, Hen Dog was shot and killed. T was deeply saddened by his death. Things went from bad to worse. Big Deb got caught up in a federal case. Ace's trial started in early 1992.
I just didn't think that they would convict him based on the word of a crackhead.
He was ultimately found guilty for a murder he didn't commit. The judge sentenced him to 20 years to life. T still loved Ace, but ultimately she moved on with her life.
August 1991, Fritz passes away. August 18th, I'm in a hospital giving birth to my daughter. At this point in time, everybody was on their way down south to Fritz's funeral. That broke my heart. It broke Ace's heart. But then I'm like, okay, Fritz, they know what he was doing for me. Ace is his man. The show must go on as far as me being taken care of. So I had a dude from 12th Street who was in charge. And he sent someone to tell me that he wasn't paying my bills no more. So I go uptown. I go to Leon. I want this nigga dead. He's disrespecting me. Leon goes, hold on, T. We about to get work from him. So I'm looking like, you about to get work from him. He's shitting on me. Big Deb comes to me. He's shitting on her. Henry comes to me. He's shitting on him. So we all fucked up. He's just messing up the family, not taking care of the family, not being loyal in no way. So me, Deb, and Hen got to do other things to get our hustle on to continue doing what we need to do and make money. But in 1992, I think it was around June, Ace was convicted and sentenced to 20 to life. At 22 years old, I didn't know what to do. I was a young mother. So immediately we jumped on paying one of the lawyers to do the appeal. We had already spent about $65,000 on the trial. The appeal was another $25,000. We immediately gave Levine $25,000 cash. We also paid for a private investigator. So we thinking we pay this money, Levine could jump on it and get this appeal going and get Ace up out of there. Eventually, that never happened, but, you know, being young, I just had to get on my job and figure out how we was going to do some things. how we was going to keep getting money. How was I going to survive? After the conviction, I had these 2 apartments, so I ended up having to downsize. That same year, me, Hen Dog, and Big Deb, we were doing some things. I was going to do something with her. Big Deb was like the coolest chick. She was her own boss, but of course, you know, she was part of the family, just like with Henry, with Fritz, you know. She was definitely that chick about her business. She was also cool with Rich Port and AZ and them, because a lot of times I would always see her up on 7th Avenue and 132nd Street as well. So yeah, you know, Big D in the book is really Big Deb, and Hen is Henry. I didn't change his name. And one thing I could say about Hen Dog, he always kept it 1,000. He was always there with me. He made sure I was all right. I spoke to him every other day, if not every day. And then in 1992, I believe it was around the summertime, I get the news that he was shot and killed in the Bronx. My heart was so broken. My world was just crashing. Fritz dying. Chuck got killed. He was a part of the crew. Ace getting convicted. Hen getting killed. It was just so much going on. And at 22 years old, I just didn't know what to do. It was just too much on a young female to have to take on, as well as trying to run her man's drug operation, collect money from dudes in the street who now was playing games because Ace locked up, Fritz is dead, Henry is dead, and Hen was the only one that was trying to get the money from everybody and making sure me and my baby was okay. So I just ended up, I moved on with my life, but I was always there for Ace no matter what.
Chapter 10, Baby J. Maine grew up in the Abraham Lincoln houses. The Abraham Lincoln Houses is a public housing complex in East Harlem. Maine started hustling at an early age. In the mid-'80s, a guy named Hector introduced him to the drug game. Hector had a spot on 131st Street, Madison Avenue in Harlem. Hector was associated with a Puerto Rican crack kingpin named Daddy. Daddy was getting money in Harlem and then later in D.C. with Hector and Boogie. Boogie is Maine's older cousin. Maine and his crew hustled back and forth between New York and D.C. In 1988, Hector was shot and killed in Washington, D.C. A few years later, Daddy was also shot and killed in Washington, D.C. Maine was said to be deeply saddened by the loss of his friends. T first met Maine in 1987. Maine was dating T's little sister. T would become like a sister to Maine. Maine also went by the name Baby J. From 1986 to 1997, Maine was in and out of prison.
I was introduced to Jermaine, by my little sister. I guess they started dating at the time. Ever since then, he been in my life. Then we just became like a family. You know, him and his little crew, they were just the funniest little guys. And it was so crazy because they were like 14, 15, 16-year-olds, little gangsters and hustlers. They was definitely getting money. I remember them being out in DC because Jermaine and Mike Murder came under guys like Daddy and Hector. Daddy and Hector, both Spanish dudes, they were like big brothers, uncles, almost father-like to Baby J and Mike Murder. Mike Murder is Max B, the rapper's older brother. So, you know, there were times where Maine would be out in D.C. I remember my sister telling me sometimes the story when he used to be out in D.C. on a payphone. He would just be like, yo, hold on, hold on, hold on. I guess because he was out there on the corner hustling. She said they would be damn near falling asleep on the phone. But I guess he felt safe just being on the phone because I guess he was just out there doing whatever he was doing. Yeah, they were definitely doing their thing. I was kind of impressed to see little dudes like that hustling and getting money as opposed to, you know, having older dudes who I was used to seeing doing it. But they would definitely, you know, had their thing going on. And he did DC, he did Youngtowns, Ohio. Later on, he did Hagerstown, Maryland, you know, and we were like a family, you know, even after him and her broke up. We cared about each other. He was there for us. If I made one phone call to him about something, he came and he was going to take care of it. That's one thing I can say. Him and his little crew, they wasn't scared of nobody, wasn't scared to do anything. They was definitely going to handle their business. Our love was like really, really, you know, thicker than blood.
Chapter 11, Death Around the Corner. 50 was a notorious figure from T's block on 134th Street.
50 was that dude from the block that wouldn't let nothing go down without him running him up out of there.
She'd known him since childhood.
Me and 50 go back to like kindergarten.
In July 1994, a man named Mike Wolf was shot dead in Harlem. He was allegedly affiliated to the lynch mob. A day later, T was walking home.
I was walking from the Jamaican restaurant with my cousin's little sister.
She saw 50 speaking to a group of men.
I looked up the block and I noticed it was 50 talking to some dudes from 140th Street.
T sensed something was wrong.
Now, I already knew right then and there, it was really no reason for 50 to be talking to them.
Seconds later, she heard gunshots and then saw 50 running towards her.
I heard shots. I turn around, I see 50 running towards me.
The gunman ran after him and started letting off more shots. The front of 50's shirt was stained with blood from a gunshot wound. T tried to run across the street to escape from the gunfire. But she was struck by a stray bullet.
As he ran towards me, all I could see was a red circle in the middle of his chest. The look on 50's face is a look that I will never forget, as if he was saying, damn. 50 always kept a gun on him, always. This particular time, I think he left it in the bodega on the corner. For some reason, I don't know why, if they approached him, he wouldn't have it on him, because he knew better than that. But as he ran towards me, I'm looking at him. There's a guy running behind him. They were running behind him. He was running towards me. I believe I yelled out one of the guys' name as if to say, yo, what y'all doing? Or just for them to stop. But as 50 got closer to me, I turned around to run across the street towards the downtown side of my block. And they were shooting at him again. I didn't feel a shot, but I fell to the ground. I looked up at my little cousin, and she was standing there in shock. I got up once I saw 50 laying in front of me. And in my mind, the visions of bodies with white sheets ran through my mind that fast. because it's something that I've seen so often, and I knew I just couldn't lay there. I said, my baby is upstairs. Her father is doing 20 years in prison. And I just said to myself, I can't leave my baby. I got up. It was a guy from my block that we called Monkey John. He was right there with me, thank God. And he got in the cab with me. So we telling the cab driver, hurry up, go to Harlem Hospital. I started to feel cold. For some reason, I knew inside something was going on because there was no blood outside. I didn't see anything. And I'm like, John, I feel cold. So we ended up getting to the emergency room. I guess he told them I was shot. They immediately tore my clothes off. The bullet went right through me and got stuck in like a little jacket vest that I had on. It was real thin, but it was stuck right there in the jacket. It went through my back, out my right breast. It punctured my lung. And the reason why I didn't see any blood because I was bleeding inside. Had I laid on the ground and waited for an ambulance, I would have smothered to death and died because my lungs were filling up with blood. 50 comes rolling in right next to me. They split his chest open and began to massage his heart. And I'm looking at 50. Come on, 50, come on, 50, come on, 50. And they just continuously trying to work on him to keep him alive. But like I said, when I saw him running towards me, most of the shots were in his chest. 50 ended up dying right there.
The shooters were allegedly associates of the lynch mob. After the shooting, Leon went to visit T at the hospital to apologize. In 1995, 10 members of the lynch mob were indicted under the Federal RICO Act. The defendants were charged with 15 murders and 9 attempted murders. "50" was one of the murder victims named in the indictment.
On TV, I saw the flares in the street, the yellow tape, the little markers. It was just crazy and surreal, once again, just to sit there and watch this like this really happened. In the meantime, I'm telling the police and the people in the hospital not to put my name downstairs. That's me, thinking on my feet, being from the street. Maybe it was The Godfather where people run up in hospitals. I knew to say, do not put my name downstairs. I didn't want nobody to find me until I spoke to Leon and Lou. In the meantime, my sister goes uptown, runs in on a meeting with Leon, Lou, and some of the shooters, and she goes in. They had no idea that I got shot. She runs in there saying, yo, y'all shot T? Y'all going to jail. She was upset, understandably so, and they looking crazy in the face from what she told me. Lou comes out, puts his head down, looks in shock. Leon basically was like, what? T was out there? Yeah, so she going in. I believe it was late that night. A big heavy dude with a white hospital jacket on pushing a tray comes into my hospital room. And it's Leon. And I'm wondering, what the fuck? I mean, he could have just came up as a visitor. Why he dressed like he worked for the goddamn hospital? But then again, it made sense because it let me act like I work here. Don't let me act like someone else who may know something about what happened. It was just crazy. But I told him what happened. He was like, T, don't worry. I'm gonna take care of them and I'm gonna make sure they take care of you. Whatever that meant. But yeah, that was definitely an experience. And the way 50 went out, me and my girlfriends, we had ended up putting something together for him. I believe it was in 1995 because of the way that it went down.